I've asked our good friend Heather Booth to come talk with us. She's an organizer and strategic campaign consultant with the folks over at Democracy Partnership. She's got a great new program called Volunteer Blue, and we're gonna find out a little bit about that. Heather, thanks for taking time for us.
God, solidarity with you, Rick. It's wonderful to be on your program because you know that if we organize, we change the world, and that's the key thing. We've got to do the work, and then we can change this world.
No, I've been saying, for at least 2 years now, if Joe Biden's going to reunite the country, we got to reunionize it. That's how we reunite this country. We need to get people back together. But let's talk about this program that you're working on, this Volunteer Blue. There's a website, volunteerblue.org. I hope folks will take that out. Walk me through what this is.
Well, it reflects the time of rising enthusiasm for labor support, for solidarity with labor, but also rising concern about a whole array of issues. But Volunteer Blue is a website that can link volunteers who are not with an organization already and link them with the elections that are coming up. Volunteer Blue is a coalition of 16 pro-democracy organizations that specialize in recruiting and mobilizing volunteers for specific elections. And right now we're focused on Ohio and Virginia. And the Virginia election is really critical. As your listeners may know, the Democrats, by a narrow majority, control the state Senate, and the Republicans, by a narrow majority, control the state House. There's a Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin. If there's a Republican sweep, he might even run for president. And that's even a really dangerous situation for unions and for those who care about reproductive freedom. Virginia being the last southern state, unless till DC becomes a state, that still provides reproductive freedom for everyone.
Yeah, and that's a big issue also in Ohio as well. I mean, fortunately, the polling in Ohio shows that the right to choose is maybe gonna survive in Ohio, which again, I think one of the reasons you chose Ohio along with Virginia.
Yes, and in Ohio, there's an effort to put that into the Constitution, reproductive freedom into the Constitution. But also, if we get out a big vote, it can also boost up Sherrod Brown, a real working class hero, will be running next year in the Senate election.
No, I love Sherrod.
What we've got 16 groups, and some of them are large field operations like Activate America, Field Team 6, Sister District, Swing Left, Grassroots Democrats HQ, and others. They've come together and made an easy to navigate website, which is volunteerblue.org. You click onto that, and you can choose what kind of work you want to do in the election. Is it making phone calls? Is it texting people? Is it writing letters? Is it going in person? Is it doing the GOTV effort and getting out the vote in these final critical weeks?
Now, it isn't one of these things where I'm going to sign up and no one's ever going to call me again, because this is part of the problem that I've heard from people who want to volunteer, especially people who are in like solid red states where it doesn't matter what they can do locally, but they want to do stuff in other states. I've heard so many horror stories. This isn't going to be like that, is it?
Oh, Rick, you've got it. And not only is it not like that, a personal coach will call you up if you want. You just click that box. And you can say, this is the state I want to work in. Right now, it's a test project for Virginia and Ohio. You can click on the kind of activity you want to do. Is it texting? Is it phone calling? Is it writing letters? Is it being there in person? And then you can also say, I need some help. And a personal coach will call you and walk you through what's needed in order to volunteer for the length of time that you've got. You may only have a couple of hours, you may have a couple of days, or you may have many days to really make this election count. And Volunteer Blue can connect you with the campaigns for all the issues you care about, for labor rights, for women's rights, for civil rights, for voting rights, for defending democracy itself.
No, this is they say this about every election. This is the most important election. This is the most important of our lifetime. This could be the last election. There's all that stuff out there, and wherever your belief structure is, I think every election is important, and having an engaged, educated, active electorate is so very important. So what you're doing, I think, is really, really important work in getting people off their couches, out of their silos, and into some activities. I think it's really important to get people participating.
Oh, Rick, what you're saying is so important. And the labor movement has known how to get out the vote, but there's so many people who may not be connected yet with a union or may not be connected yet with an organization, but they're concerned. And especially young people who care so much about the issues, whether it's climate or safe gun laws or reproductive freedom or student debt, whatever their issues, they may not see how to connect with the elections. And Volunteer Blue will provide you a way to work on those issues, drive that issue into the election, and with a personal coach and assistant to help you figure out exactly what you can do and where you can be most effective.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially for candidates who are further down the ballot who don't have the big checks. This kind of volunteerism can help, staff campaigns of people who, quite frankly, don't have the ability to hire large numbers of people, and especially people, and this is where I don't think we spend enough time on, people who are, they may not win, but we need to fight in every district, in every election, to ensure that ideas get out there. So for me, even in places that, the polling may be a little off, still getting people to man those campaigns, to fight in those districts that right now may be, swung way too far to one side or the other. For me, this is an opportunity to do some of that.
Oh, you're making such a good point. But in these two elections, in Ohio and in Virginia, we can win. I mean, we really are within what the pollsters call the margin of error, but we often call the margin of effort. We have the numbers to win if we organize, if we contact those voters, if we get out our supporters. In Virginia, there are 140 races that are up. There are about 20 that are really marginal and will depend on the control of the state legislature and the state Senate. And it will make such a difference in Virginia and be a boost really around the country. We can win a small number of races, a small number of votes, and each volunteer can make a difference. And the same in Ohio, Rick, just as you said, Ohio, we are within the margin of error, or as we say, the margin of effort that we put in to winning in Ohio. So both of these are not just symbolic efforts. These are real opportunities for victory, but it depends on us getting out the vote.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Heather Booth. Heather's an organizer and strategic campaign consultant with Democracy Partners. We're talking about their Volunteer Blue campaign. You want to check out their website, volunteerblue.org. We'll get links out on social media on how you could participate, how you can get involved, and maybe save Ohio and Virginia from insanity and, well, right-wing lunacy. So walk me through, if you would, Heather, this process again, because I want to make sure people feel comfortable with, when you go there, I'm going to click on, I've never done this before. Where's it going to take me?
But Rick, I love you. By the way, we all should be supporting you and this program. You are doing such great work, and we are so thrilled that you are getting out the message. If you go to volunteer.org, you'll see a website, and then it will ask, where would you like to volunteer? We've got now Ohio and Virginia. This is a test because next year we'll roll this out more broadly and allow people to work in any state they want in the country. So you don't have to be in the state. You can still do work remotely. Or you can click a box and say, I'd like to do this kind of work. I would like to make phone calls. I'd like to text. I'd like to write postcards. It's still not too late for the postcards. I'd like to I could go in person. I have a car. I speak Spanish. And it'll ask those levels of questions and then also ask, would you like assistance? And a coach will call you if you check that box and follow up and say, well, I'd like to text, but I don't really know about texting, or I'd like to make phone calls, but could I do it from my home? They can even set up a system where you can do it from your home, from your own computer, from your own cell phone.
Yep.
And
if you're technologically savvy just a little bit, you just hook your phone up to your laptop and the numbers will just appear. I've done things like this before. It's amazing what we can do and how simple it is to get people involved, which is why I think what you're doing with Volunteer Blue is so important. The website again, volunteerblue.org. We'll get links out on social media on how we can do this. Last question I've got for you in going through this. We go back to what I started off with. This is the most important election ever. We're told this all the time. I got to tell you, we're getting to that point where every election is the most important ever, and there's no sitting one out, is there?
Well, right now this country is on a knife's edge between freedom to vote, reproductive freedom to even have elections that count, freedom to thrive, freedom to have unions, versus an authoritarian, hate-filled, often violent rule. And if that authoritarian alternative comes into power, they may take out what small guardrails we have for what democracy we have, as much as we need to improve that democracy, as much as we need to build the unions, as much as we need to give people confidence we can govern our own country.
There you go. I'm going to jump out on the limb and say, if fascism scares you, go to volunteerblue.org. Again, we'll get links out on social media on how you can check out what they do at Volunteer Blue. But Heather, always great talking with you. I'd love to know how this works out. Hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Love you truly.
Thanks so much, our good friend Heather Booth. Again, remember, check out the website, volunteerblue.org. Back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.